Yeah. Class is in session. Knowledge unknown is the blessing. Common to fish to ask questions like share, leave suggestions. Power to my people is the message. We've been here before it started. No doubt we the hardest in remembrance of those departed. We are keeping our swords, the sharpest class with skill.
Class with skill. Class with skill.
Class, take your seats. Today, we're not talking about a war fought with bullets. We're talking about a war fought with textbooks. In 2026, Texas became the center of a national debate after changes were made to proposed social studies standards involving slavery, segregation, Native American removal, and civil rights history. Some called it a correction. Others called it a rewriting of history. But before choosing a side, we need to understand something important. History is not merely a collection of dates. History is memory, and memory shapes identity. Throughout history, rulers understood this principle. Empires built monuments. Kings commissioned chronicles. Victors wrote the first drafts of history, because whoever controls the lesson often controls the legacy. Supporters of the Texas revisions argue that schools should focus more on constitutional principles, patriotism, religion, and the institutions that built America. Critics argue that reducing emphasis on slavery and segregation risks minimizing the struggles that shaped the nation. At its core, this isn't just a disagreement about facts. It's a disagreement about emphasis. What should students remember? What should they understand? And what lessons should define the future? Because every generation inherits a version of history. The question is, who decides what that version looks like? Class dismissed for now. Welcome back, class. Today we're examining a battle over a single sentence. One proposed standard stated that Southern states seceded from the Union in part to preserve slavery. To many historians, that statement reflects the words of the seceding states themselves. Several declarations of secession explicitly reference slavery. Confederate leaders discussed it openly. Their speeches, letters, and government documents still exist. Yet that sentence became controversial. Why? Because history is never just about the past. It's about what the present chooses to emphasize. Supporters of the revisions argue that students should learn about multiple causes of the Civil War, including political disputes, regional conflicts, and questions of federal power. Critics respond that slavery was not merely one issue among many. They argue it was the central issue around which the others revolved. And that's where the fight begins. Not over whether slavery existed, but over how prominently it should be placed in the story. Because if you move the center of a story, you change the way future generations understand it. History doesn't change, but interpretation can. And interpretation influences memory. Class, today we step back from Texas, because this story is bigger than one state. Every civilization has fought battles over memory. The Egyptians celebrated victories on stone walls. Roman emperors erased rivals from public records. Governments throughout history have shaped the stories citizens tell about themselves. Why? Because history creates identity. A nation that remembers only its triumphs becomes arrogant. A nation that remembers only its failures becomes cynical. A healthy understanding requires both. America's history includes extraordinary achievements. It also includes slavery, segregation, discrimination, and conflict. The challenge is deciding how those realities should be taught. The current debate isn't about whether these events happened. It's about emphasis. Which events receive detailed attention? Which become footnotes? Which lessons are considered essential? Because emphasis shapes understanding. A student may memorize dates without understanding causes. A student may know names without understanding consequences. And that's why curriculum debates matter. They influence how future generations see their nation, their communities, and themselves. History is more than a record of the past. It's a mirror, and every generation must decide whether it wants that mirror to reflect the whole picture or only the parts that make it comfortable. Class, welcome back. The Civil War ended in 1865. The guns fell silent. The Confederacy collapsed, and 4 million formerly enslaved people stepped into freedom. But freedom did not mean equality. The years that followed became known as Reconstruction. For a brief moment, America witnessed something remarkable. Black Americans voted. Black Americans held office. Black Americans helped write laws and shape governments throughout the South. Men who had once been considered property became legislators, educators, business owners, and community leaders. But that moment would not last. As Reconstruction faded, a new system emerged. It came to be known as Jim Crow. State governments passed laws separating Black and white Americans in schools, transportation, housing, and public life. Voting restrictions spread. Economic opportunities narrowed. Violence became a tool used to enforce the racial order. For decades, millions lived under a system that promised freedom on paper while limiting it in practice. This is why historians often emphasize Reconstruction and Jim Crow, not because they are the entire story of America, but because they help explain what happened after slavery ended. They help explain why the civil rights movement emerged. They help explain the struggles and achievements of generations that followed. When debates arise over how much attention these topics deserve, the concern isn't simply about dates and names. It's about understanding cause and effect, because history is connected. One chapter leads to another. And when students lose one chapter, they may struggle to understand the next. Class, every story has turning points. Reconstruction was one. Jim Crow was another. And whether those stories are remembered clearly may shape how future generations understand the nation itself. Class, this is our final lesson. We've talked about slavery. We've talked about secession. We've talked about memory, Reconstruction, and the power of curriculum. Now we arrive at the question underneath all the others. What is history for? Is history meant to inspire, to warn, to unite, to challenge? The answer may be all of the above. Supporters of curriculum reform argue that students need a stronger understanding of American ideals, institutions, and achievements. They believe patriotism and civic understanding deserve greater emphasis. Critics argue that students cannot fully understand America without confronting slavery, segregation, discrimination, and the conflicts that shape the nation. They believe difficult truths are essential to honest education. Both sides claim to care about the future. Both sides claim to care about students. And that is why the debate remains so intense, because the classroom is where future citizens are formed. The lessons taught today become the assumptions of tomorrow. The stories remembered become the foundation of public understanding. Class history is not simply about memorizing the past. History is about learning how societies make decisions, solve problems, repeat mistakes, and pursue progress. A nation that forgets its failures risks repeating them. A nation that forgets its achievements risks losing confidence in itself. Wisdom requires remembering both. So when you hear debates about textbooks, standards, and curriculum, remember this. The argument is not merely about what happened. The argument is about what future generations will understand about what happened. Because every generation inherits a history book, and every generation leaves one behind. Class dismissed, but the conversation continues.
Like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Drop a fist in the comments, and if you have questions, suggestions, or knowledge to add, leave it below.
stay sharp, and I'll see you next class.